10 seconds of silence. That's good enough.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm toasted.
Oh my God.
To the brown, to your sister.
You guys, if you're on the Patreon, well, if you listen to Tuesday's episode, you know we're in a Hamilton mood. But you don't.
It just
know...
rolls over. Once we get in that mood, it doesn't stop.
It doesn't go
Can't
away.
stop, won't stop.
But you don't know the half of it unless you're also on the Patreon and got to see this month's video or November's video.
All of it.
It came out Monday and it was like just so much Hamilton, you know? And the thing is, like, I think we've discussed Hamilton here and there, but not like when I had Hamilton in my brain, I was like, I'm not even sure that Kara's gonna know all the songs.
Please.
I was wrong. She knew more songs than I knew.
Yeah.
What?
I asked Tyler if he knew who Hamilton was because we were working on that project over there. And he was like, yeah, I went and saw it. I was like with Lin-Manuel. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I hate you.
I'm depressed.
But then I sent him some of those clips. And he was like, oh, yeah, you all have to do a Hamilton concert at the venue now. And I
Where
was
you
like,
just lip sync.
This is incredible. I can't wait. I cannot wait. So that's next up on our project list. It's going to be lovely.
Hey,
Hi, y'all. What y'all doing today?
This is the Witches, Magic, Murder, Mystery Podcast.
And this is Kara.
Y'all doing all right?
Your mom's good?
I'm Megan.
That's Megan. She's got what her mama likes to call the sugars.
The sugars.
You ever Google something? We're not making fun of our
Twinkies. I am. You know what? Tell my daughter's home ec teacher. I am making fun of farmers. I love farmers.
Dun, 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 dun.
We love farmers.
What are we doing with our lives today?
I don't know. We're like 2.5 minutes in.
We've only been with each other for like 30 minutes. This isn't even 3 hours in. Man.
We I need to warn you about something.
Why am I holding my mug like this?
You look stressed. You look like you're freezing. Are you freezing? It's warm today. It's a balmy 53 degrees or something outside, which feels like a heat wave compared to what it has been.
Yeah.
But I need to warn everyone, not just Kara, about this. Today's episode, number one, amazing, because of course. But secondly, I'm
triggered.
Well aware that I'm about to go off on some tangents. So I will try to cut them down to what I can in the podcast form. But the YouTube video is gonna not.
You get what you get.
We don't edit it, and you don't throw a fit.
You love us.
We don't edit the YouTube video, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I just know I can already feel it. I got a lot of things on my mind. I have like all this stuff that I've been reading about this story, which it's a
questionable.
It's a mystery.
Okay.
But there's murder involved.
Ooh, are you gonna do like a double?
Not sure.
Double graphic?
I don't know what I'm gonna do. We'll see. Probably not. I'll probably just put it as a mystery.
Put a black hole.
The mystery hole.
The mystery. Don't put my mystery. Those pictures I sent you only stay in your camera.
This is why people think we're a couple. I forgot what I was gonna say now. I forgot. So I've got all the stuff in this episode. I'm gonna start therapy again next week.
Okay.
Just going back to therapy, you guys.
Okay.
So I've been reading a lot of like psychology stuff and things, and just
getting
self-analyzation stuff.
Getting all the
so I have all these things in my brain, and I'm sure this is gonna go into all of them today.
Okay, this is great.
Just be ready.
Just you wait.
Just you wait. All right. Okay. This is one of those stories that I almost haven't been able to talk to you for the last few days because I couldn't tell you about it.
I thought she was angry. No, I didn't.
I've maybe even said this already on the podcast, but it made me giggle so much. I don't know if it was a TikTok or Instagram or what, but somebody had put this thing that was like, what's the best way, like, what's it like being friends with a person who has a lot of anxiety? And it's like every morning you should wake up and just say, hey, I'm not mad at you. Like, every morning.
Yeah.
And it'll just make everything go smoother.
Everything's fine. Everything's peachy keen.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So we need you all to message us every day.
Hey, we still like you.
Yeah.
Even though you go off on tangents.
It's fine.
Check our... Okay.
Mhm.
Walter Collins was 9 years old when he put on his lumberjacket, brown corduroys, black shoes, and gray hat, and he left his house to go to the movies. It was 1928, March 10th, 1928. And I was like, wow, he's 9. And he's just like, going to the movies.
I'll see y'all later. I'll take my coat. I'll be responsible. I'll take my coat.
That would never happen.
No.
Did I ever tell you the story about... There was some story in the news about a couple girls who were like walking near their house alone, and I think their parents might have gotten in trouble for like neglect or something, strictly because these girls were out walking by themselves. And I had said something on Facebook about it because I hadn't learned yet to keep my mouth shut about things. And I said something about how I was like, I don't know, I let my 2 girls walk from my house to the neighborhood pool alone. I live very close to the pool. And Facebook really came at me about it. They were, I mean,
really?
People I hadn't spoken to in years came out of the woodwork just to be like, Megan, God,
you don't even know
what a terrible mother you are. Wow. I mean, it was something. It was enough that I ended up deleting the post, which I'm generally against doing, but I deleted it because like being a good mom is basically the only thing I really care about.
Right.
And so for all of a sudden, all these people, and Facebook is like
making you like question.
Yeah. Facebook is people who know me.
Right.
Or have known me at some point.
Yeah.
And so I was very
come
like,
at me. Yeah. Who
what?
are you?
Of course, now, if any of you are listening, I just want to say you suck. My kids are fine.
These kids are great, guys.
So anyway, I'm off on a tangent already, and that wasn't even intentional. But
you're a great mother.
Thank you. Point being, my kids still walk to the pool by themselves, and Walter Collins went to the movies, and he was 9. Okay. Anyway. He took some money with him that his mom had given him. I read somewhere that it was like a penny, which is just precious.
Yeah.
So he left, and he never came home. He was last seen by a neighbor around 5 o'clock.
Oh, no.
So he disappeared in March. Police and Christine initially thought that he might have been taken by people who were enemies of Walter's dad. Oh. So Walter's dad was at that time serving time in prison for armed robbery.
Oh.
So they were like, maybe he has some kind of connections or something and somebody wants to get revenge on him and they're taking his kid.
Okay.
But they never found any evidence to support that.
Huh.
So it was really just a matter of, oh, his dad's in prison. Let's see how we could.
Right.
So months go by. There were reported sightings of him and hundreds of leads were investigated, but they didn't go anywhere. There was this one super weird report where someone called in saying they'd seen Walter at a gas station, like in the back of a car, and that all you could see was his head and the rest of his body was covered up in newspaper.
Oh.
But then when police checked it out,
what?
They didn't find it. It's the weirdest. Like, what is that? Such a weird.
Did he become a newsie?
No. No. Sadly, no. So anyway, the longer this went on, the more pressure that the police had to solve the case, right? Like, a kid goes missing.
Right. Yeah.
No matter what, people want to find it. So Walter's disappearance was national news in the 1928. You know, it's not like the news is now, but it was still national news. Everyone wanted him to be found.
Yeah.
So here's something else, just to give you a little context of what was happening at the time. So the Los Angeles the Los Okay. The Los Angeles Police Department was already under fire at the time.
Oh.
They'd been fighting accusations of corruption and incompetency. I mean, the LAPD's been fighting
forever
corruption for years.
Hot minute.
So in December of 1927, which was 4 months before Walter went missing, the LAPD had failed to stop the murder of 12-year-old Marion Parker. She'd been kidnapped and held for ransom before being just brutally, awfully, horribly murdered. And when I first, I saw this little footnote in an article and I was like, oh, I'll go look that up and I'll tell them that story too. I can't. And you guys, I'm a true crime person.
Right.
I find this stuff really interesting. I've read a million stories. I have a daughter who's going to be 12 literally a week from today. When I read what happened to this little girl, I cannot.
No.
I'm not telling you.
Yeah. No.
You can be mad at me if you want to.
Yeah.
But it's like, I love you too much. I just can't
Yeah.
do this to you. Like, I wish I didn't know it. So
Ugh.
I'm just saying this to like, please resist.
Googling.
Like, I wrote this in here. Do not Google this. It's unbelievably awful. I
Mhm.
literally teared up when I read it, which I don't think that's ever
Yeah.
happened to me. I've heard of that happening to other people.
Yeah.
This one really, really, really got to me. You know how sometimes you learn a thing and you're like, crap, now
I
that's a
wish
thing
now it's
that's in my head. Yeah. And so that's how I feel about it.
Oh.
The only good thing here is that her killer was caught, went to trial, and was put to death.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, depending on how you feel about the death penalty, but whatever. He's gone.
Poor baby.
So horrible, horrible, horrible.
Yes.
The Los Angeles Times called Marion Parker's murder the most horrible crime of the 1920s.
Oh my gosh.
And at the time, it was considered the most horrific crime in California history.
Poor baby.
Shh.
We don't want to know.
Shh.
We don't need you right now.
I'm going to say that again. The Los Angeles Times called Marion Parker's murder the most horrible crime of the 1920s. And at the time, it was considered the most horrific crime in California history. And the LAPD had failed to stop it. So
Oh my gosh.
when Walter Collins vanished, the LAPD really, really needed a win.
Yeah.
Okay? So
But
keep
also,
that in mind.
like, how can you fail to stop it if you don't know when or where or how it's going to happen?
It was...
Or did they know what, like...
They didn't know. There were ransom. The guy who did it was a former co-worker of the girl's dad. Like, there's just maybe dots. But it also just may have been like, it's not necessarily their fault.
Right.
But it's just like, can they handle another really
Right.
awful child case when this just
if this
happened?
comes up, can they get to it quicker?
Yeah.
Can they solve
You
it
don't
quicker?
want people to start feeling like our children
Right.
aren't safe here.
Yeah. It's like the Atlanta murders.
Right. So in August, 5 months after Walter disappeared, a runaway boy was picked up in Illinois, and he told police that his name was Walter Collins, and he looked like Walter, like he had matched his description. So police called Christine immediately, and then Walter and Christine exchanged letters and photographs before finally Christine paid $70 to get her son back to LA.
Oh.
When the boy arrived in LA, Christine pretty much immediately looked at him and was like, I do not think
This is
that is my son. Yeah.
Oh.
LAPD Captain J.J. Jones
JJ.
suggested, why don't you just take the boy home and try him out?
Huh?
Like he's a used car or something. Just take him for a
You know what?
spin.
This is like a little trial foster puppy. Have at it.
Just try him out, see how it goes.
Take it on a walk and see if it's a good fit. No.
So police said, he looks a little different, but that's because of all the trauma he's gone through. And the Los Angeles Times article from August 19th, 1928 states, not only was the youth's body sadly emaciated. Okay. Not only was the youth's body sadly emaciated and his face drawn, but his mind had been affected, according to officers who examined him, apparently the result, they said, of harrowing experiences he had been subjected to by his kidnapper.
Oh, no.
He did resemble Walter and even acted like him sometimes. But whereas Walter was quiet and well-behaved, this boy was kind of hard to handle.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Again, if he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
Walter had called her mother. This kid called her ma. It's been 4 months. I don't know. That's
But what if his captor also had a mother figure there, and that's what they had to refer to her as?
Oh, so he got in the habit?
Yeah.
He was also an inch shorter than Walter.
Oh, that's not possible. You don't get...
And Christine actually ended up getting dental records to show that this boy was not her son.
Oh.
So it took about 3 weeks, and finally she went back to the police. She had the dental records, and she also had testimonies of her friends who knew Walter and knew this boy, and they were like, yeah, it's not him. And so, all right, you're the police.
Uh-huh.
This little boy's went missing. You found him, returned him to his mom. She comes to you and is like, this isn't my son. What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you
Where's
do?
this kid's mom?
Well, the police basically responded by just insisting the boy is Walter.
What?
Like, and here's their proof. Walter's dog seemed to recognize the boy. And also, they tested the boy by having him, like, they took him away and they had him find his way home by himself without any help. And he did it.
Yeah, but he's been there for 3 weeks.
So that's all it took. Case closed. Ma'am, this is your son. Stop making it
If
weird.
you brought a 12-year-old girl or a 7-year-old girl into my house, my dogs would be like, yay!
Oh, yeah, for sure. Dex, my dog, Millie's scared of everything, but Dex would
Dex
be
loves
like,
everybody. Yeah.
yeah,
You
we're
got
all best
food for
friends.
me or something? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, this is your son.
Yeah.
You know, and Christine is like, it's not.
It's
Is not.
Yeah, this isn't my kid.
So I just keep thinking, like, I'm putting myself in her place, and I'm like, you'd have to feel like you're losing your mind, because
Right.
it's like the police leave and you're just there alone
With this random kid.
imposter.
Yeah.
And it's this little boy who's looking at you saying, I'm your son. I'm Walter.
And you're like, no, babe.
And the police are saying, this is your son.
Walter.
But you look at him and you're like, no. Like, I would have to, I think I'd be like, is he my, like,
Yeah.
what? I think I would lose it.
Yeah.
So Captain Jones really, really went after her on this. He was like, are you trying to make fools out of us?
Oh, no.
Because that's the number
Did they
one
ask
concern.
the kid what movie he saw on the night?
Yeah, I don't think
Or whatever day that
I
was?
never saw anything mentioned of that. He accused her of trying to get out of being a mom and
But
force
she's
the
been looking
state.
for her kid.
Yeah, he's like, you're just trying to have the state take care of your kid. He said, you are the most cruel-hearted woman I have ever known. To this woman whose son disappeared.
Oh.
And then
Oh, there's more.
on September 8th, 1928, Captain Jones had Christine committed to the psychiatric ward
Stop it.
at the Los Angeles County General Hospital under a Code 12 internment, which is a term used to jail or commit someone who was deemed difficult or an inconvenience. He had her put in the psychiatric ward because
Where'd the
she
kid go?
insisted this wasn't her son. Well, the police had him at that point. Let's just take a moment to process that they just committed her for it. Tangent. I took a little time to go read about women and insane asylums, which this wasn't an insane asylum.
It was really just a way to get rid of your
but it
wife
just
whenever.
fascinates me that he was able just to have her committed like this. There's a Time article I found called Declared Insane for Speaking Up, The Dark American History of Silencing Women Through Psychiatry. It's linked in the show notes. And if this is something you're interested in, which I love it.
Right.
I highly recommend it. It details the story of a woman named Elizabeth in the late 1800s, which again, this story is the 1920s. This is the late 1800s.
But it's
I
not
understand
far
it's
from
not
that.
exactly the same. Right. There are people who probably were still alive.
Yeah.
And lived through this part. So back then, this woman, Elizabeth, she was committed to an asylum basically just because she stood up to her husband.
Oh my God.
And back then, you could have a woman committed just because her husband requested it.
Yeah, it was an inconvenience.
Yeah. And normally, to have someone committed, you had to have some proof of insanity. But if a husband requested it, you didn't have to prove anything.
Yep.
If he wanted it done, it was done.
It was the gospel.
And the only way to get out of the asylum was to submit. So here's a quote from the article. Every genuine emotion had to be stifled. Every act of difference from the society's prescribed model of femininity had to be suppressed. Elizabeth could not display her anger at what had happened or even hint at hatred for her husband. So he got her in there and she basically just had to be like, yeah, he did the right thing. I deserve to be here. Her psychiatrist was watching, and her unladylike emotion would justify continued incarceration. After all, women who had ungovernable personalities and strong resolution were literally textbook examples of female insanity.
We would be crazy. They would think we're insane.
Oh, 100%. Like with our tattoos and piercings and interest in crime and
Outspoken.
how dare we have opinions.
Oh.
Anyway, so it's infuriating. And with other stuff I've been reading too, it's just this whole thing about like how women for all of our forever, it's like you've had to fit a certain mold to be considered acceptable. And if you didn't fit that mold,
Physically and emotionally.
it's not just that people might not like you or you might not find a husband.
Yeah.
It's that you could be killed as a witch, you could be burned.
Yeah.
Or
Put
you
in
could be
a
I mean, it's always just
mental
like we're gonna ruin your life. You know what I mean? Like it's not just that you're gonna be an outcast. You
You're
could
not what we want in life, so you're gonna you're ruined.
So you are taught as a woman to like contain things.
It's
I
like
hate
that
it.
little,
I hate it.
all those little etiquette books we keep finding in the antique
yeah.
stores.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
So good.
Anyway,
Back at it.
this police captain thought this woman was making his job too difficult, so he had her committed. So it's great.
It's
Anyway,
so good. It's so good.
while Christine is in the psychiatric ward, an investigation by a handwriting expert concluded that this child was not Walter Collins. And the boy finally wrote a confession saying, "I am not Walter Collins. My name is Billy Fields. I said I was Walter Collins because I wanted to get into the movies in Los Angeles."
You're 9?
They threw Christine into a mental ward against her will, and she was right. She was right. She knew the second she saw him.
That's not my kid.
They wasted 3 weeks. They could have been searching for Walter, and instead they just insisted,
that this kid was hers.
"You're wrong. You're the mother. That
You're
you
a
don't
horrible
recognize your
mother
own
now."
child." I was so mad. Also, it turns out his name wasn't even Billy Fields. It was Arthur Hutchins. He's just like a freaking con man. He was 12. He wasn't 9. But if you see pictures, if you guys look it up, they do look similar. It's weird. There's also a picture of Christine with Arthur. Like they had him do like a photo shoot after, I guess for the newspaper probably. And it's so just like,
That's not my kid face.
it's so uncomfortable to watch, to look at.
Oh,
You can see it all online.
oh, that's
Okay.
cringy.
So if you look in the show notes, it's in, I think, not the Wikipedia, or maybe in the Wikipedia. But anyway, you'll see all those pictures. It's creepy. So 12-year-old Arthur Hutchins was originally from Iowa, and he had been hitchhiking around the country after his mother died. He'd run away from his father and stepmother, stating that his stepmother was abusive. And I don't know that. I don't know how if that was ever investigated.
Right.
I did try to look into it, and it's like, who knows?
Yeah, because he lied about everything.
Yeah. So at some point, while he's running away, someone told him that he resembled this missing boy from Los Angeles.
No.
So I think what I read, if I understand it correctly, is that he kind of then purposefully made some changes to look more like him.
Oh.
And then when he was picked up by the police, he
was like, "Yeah,
said,
this is me."
"I'm Walter Collins." And he had this kind of, this story about how he was abducted and he ended up across the country. Like that story was pretty vague, and the authorities were skeptical. But like I said, the LAPD was like desperate to close this case.
Yeah, they wanted it to be done.
So they were just like unwilling to question it.
Jesus.
Between the letters that the boy had exchanged with Christine before they met and the questioning from the police, Arthur was able to glean enough information to pull this off. He got just enough to be believable.
Oh, wow.
When asked why he had lied, Arthur said he wanted to go to Hollywood. He wanted to meet a cowboy actor named Tom Mix. He also said that Christine was nice to him, and it was fun to pretend to be someone else. Yes.
What?
Christine was released from the psych ward on September 13th, 1928, 10 days after she'd been admitted. She sued the LAPD, and Captain Jones was suspended from the police force.
Only suspended.
I know, I wondered about that too. She was awarded $10,800 in her lawsuit against Jones, but he never paid it. And
of course he did.
For the rest of her life, she kept trying to get that money. She went to court a couple more times, and the court sided with her, but he never paid it. As for what actually happened to Walter, we still don't really know.
The state would pay that to her.
I wondered about that too. It's like she sued the police force. Why was it specifically him? And I don't know if it's got something to do with, I don't know how police stuff works or insurance or, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
Especially in the 20s, who knows?
Right. So we still don't 100% know, although they have a fairly good suspicion of what happened to Walter. So in 1929, a man named Gordon Stewart Northcott was found guilty of carrying out the Wineville chicken coop murders in Riverside County, California, from 1926 to 1928. So that overlaps with when he disappeared. In those murders, Northcott kidnapped children and then took them to his chicken farm.
No.
Where he abused, tortured, and killed them.
No.
He did all of this with the help of his mother, Susan Louise Northcott.
Susan. No, ma'am.
So when Susan confessed in late 1928, she stated that Walter Collins was one of her son's victims and she had helped murder him.
No.
After her confession, she didn't go to trial. She was just sentenced to life in prison for Walter's death.
Oh, wow.
Okay. However, Gordon denied killing Walter. He said he had never met the boy. When police raided the chicken farm, they found body parts buried there.
Oh, my God.
But nothing was tied back to Walter. And when Gordon eventually went to trial for the murders, remember I told you he was found guilty? He went on trial for the deaths of 3 boys, but Walter was not one of the ones that he was tried for. And the reason why is because for the 3 deaths Gordon went to trial for, there was physical evidence to prove he'd murdered those children.
Right.
But with Walter, there was nothing. There was no belongings, no traces, no grave, no body. So there's the only thing they have to go on is Susan's confession.
Right.
So later, Susan tried to recant her confession, and she gave several inconsistent statements. But since, like, the only murder she's in prison for was Walter's, she may have just been trying to get out of prison.
Right. That's
right?
true.
Like, if that's the only reason she's in jail, and she can say, oh, I made that up.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, her confession, her original confession, was corroborated by her son's nephew, who claimed to have been coerced into being an accomplice in the murder. Explain to me, I don't know why I got so stuck on this, but last night I was like, son's nephew. It's her son's nephew.
Her son's sibling's child. So it's her grandson as
Why
well.
didn't it say that then? That's what I'm saying.
Unless it was on, like, if he was married and it was his wife's nephew. So it was his nephew by marriage. And so it wouldn't be that woman's grandchild.
Yep. My head hurts.
Yeah. Right.
I just was like,
right?
yeah, that okay.
But
I
if he
still
was-
would consider
if
it
he
her
was
grandchild,
married,
but
like,
I get it.
yeah.
Not biologically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I read this forever and I was like, her son's nephew. What does
It's
that
like
mean?
those things you see on Facebook. It's like, what's this, then this, but then you have to do this and this and this and this, and no one gets it right. But then everybody's like, it's the easiest answer. And I'm like,
No, it's not.
no, it's not.
All right. So anyway, point being, there is someone else who is another accomplice in the murders who says he backs up Susan's original confession. So it seems like Walter was probably a victim.
Okay.
But she was like, here's what we did and here's where we buried him. And when they went and looked there, they didn't find him.
Right.
So it's I don't know what to make of it.
I don't know.
So Christine wrote a letter to Gordon and went to visit him in prison. And she said, she asked him, did you kill my son? And his answers were so like weird and bizarre and all over the place that she was like, he's insane. Like,
I'm not dealing with you.
But that uncertainty gave her hope that Walter is still alive.
Oh.
So before he was executed, Gordon sent Christine a telegram and he was like, I lied to you when I said I didn't kill Walter. I promise, if you'll just come see me,
Nope.
I will tell you the truth about what happened to your son.
Nope.
So obviously Christine goes because you'd
Clarice.
have to. Clarice. So when Christine showed up, just hours before his execution, Gordon refused to see her. He was like, I don't want to see you. I don't know anything about your son. I'm innocent. This woman,
He was just
the
getting
hell she went through.
He was just getting fun out of torturing someone still.
Right. And who knows? Who knows? Torturing her because he did or
Yeah.
torturing her because he didn't.
Yeah.
So Christine walked away from that exchange still thinking
Maybe
it's like there's no
possible he's
conclusive
still- yeah.
evidence that he's dead. So
Ugh.
then he might still be alive.
Oh
And
my
as a
God.
mother, I think I'd be the same way.
Yeah.
You have to.
Hopeful.
You would
Yeah.
never want to give up
No.
unless you're Dorothy Arnold's parents.
Yeah.
Patreon episode.
Hates.
So for 36 years, she never stopped looking for her son.
Oh, what?
She died on December 8th, 1964, and no sign of Walter Collins has ever been found.
Wow.
The people of Wineville, where those chicken, it's called like the chicken coop murders of
yeah.
Wineville, the Wineville chicken coop murders, they decided after that to change the name of the town.
Oh.
Basically, they wanted to disassociate themselves from it
Oh,
completely.
wow.
So they changed the name from Wineville to Miraloma. So Wineville does not exist anymore.
What? That's a...
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I guess that's a thing you can do.
Sure.
I mean, it's a child murderer, and it was
Yeah.
pretty horrific. So I guess they're just like,
Yeah,
yeah, we don't.
don't.
Especially when it's called the Wineville murders. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
let's
true.
not do that anymore.
Yeah, no.
I would just move.
What about
So-
the Golden State Killer? Like,
Just leave California. So yeah, I don't know what to think about Walter. I feel like he probably was one of the victims of that, but it is weird that they never found anything.
Yeah.
And California was such, it still is wild, but particularly back then, there's like so many different serial killers operating and overlapping in their timelines that it's like, it could have been that guy, it could have been somebody else. I mean,
Right.
they never found anything. So if you've ever seen that Angelina Jolie movie, The Changeling, that movie is based on this. It's about Christine's search for her son. So in case you've ever heard of that movie, or I've never seen it, but I know of it. Angelina Jolie was like nominated for an Academy Award for it. So maybe go check it out if you're more interested in the story. It is a fascinating story, but just when I think about what Christine went, like she lost her son.
Right.
Then she finds her son and is all like, oh my God, he's coming home. And then it's not
She
him.
realizes it's not him.
And then she's
forced to believe it's him.
Who would ever
she's
expect to
thrown
have to
in a-
fight over that? Who would ever expect that? That you say that's not my son and people are like, yeah, it is. Especially the police.
Please, that looks just like him.
And then you go to the mental hospital and then
10 days later, you get out and sue somebody for,
and then someone confesses to killing him and then someone takes it back. I mean,
and then someone says he's got details
through,
but won't give them to you and then
I
they
can't
die.
take it. How many, just the roller coaster of we found him we found him. It's not him. We know what's happened to him. Now we don't. I mean, I just can't
It's horrible.
imagine.
That poor woman.
And her husband was in prison. She did it all alone.
Yeah. My gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's horrible.
I feel like I withheld my tangents pretty well, don't you?
You did it
I
so
mean, I really
good.
could have gone
You
a lot
really
harder.
did so good. Yeah.
So, but if y'all want to discuss,
Megan's got all
if you want to discuss what women,
oh God,
how we have been trained to behave.
I don't like it.
I
I mean, even now, like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, I am hating, but the private school that I went to, like, that's. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's our story. Thank you all. Thanks for listening.
Man.
Yeah. I can't. I didn't know if you would have heard that story before because of the changeling.
I had heard like about it, but not like ever looked into it. So no, that's good to know the details. It's insane.
Is it good though?
I don't. I mean, it's now resting in my brain.
Do
And
not
this little nugget.
look up that murder, guys. Don't
Please
don't. If you
That's
do,
why I won't do the toolbox murders either.
no. I heard somebody else. Actually, the Morbid girls, Ash and Elena, they were talking about. They mentioned toolbox killers, and they were like, "We're going to have to cover that sometime." But God, it's awful, and they'll cover some rough stuff.
Yeah.
There's lots of things. Like I actually thought of them when I did this episode because I thought if I was Ash and Elena, they would cover it. But I can't. I just can't. And you guys, if you Google it, you're going to come to me and you're going to be like, Megan, you were right.
You told me not to.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I expect an apology. I wasn't even going to tell you all. I thought I'm just going to leave it out completely. But I do think it's important to know the context.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't excuse what the LAPD did.
No, not at all.
But it kind of helps. It just places you in that, like, here's all the stuff going on around this. And it's important to keep that in mind, not just in this story, but in a lot of them. There's so many factors involved that you wouldn't even think of having an impact.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Ugh.
Thank you all for listening.
Yes, as always, our articles are in the show notes and everything's found in the link tree. You can message us on social media, on our Facebook page. You can also email us, which is magicmurdermystery@gmail.com.
Our Facebook group is one of my favorite things in the world.
Yes.
When I'm bored, I'll just go in there and look, and it's just
people have been posting a lot. I think some people are like, I know we used to post once a week, and I was like, oh dang, we got strayed away from
again.
that
Where
did November go? We don't know.
I'm confused.
I'm really what's happening.
But we do love you, and if you're not in the Facebook group, you should be. If you are in the Facebook group, please know that I love your all's posts, and I try to go in there and look at all of them and comment and stuff because they're great. You're all just the best.
So amazing.
Okay, have a great weekend.
Yes,
we love you
so much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.